So Devin,
Sir.
Trade Federation.
Trade Federation.
I mean, so here we go. The crawl fades back into, space.
Yeah.
And then we get our first introduction to sort of the villains of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And
yes, we do.
It's the Trade Federation.
Yeah.
And we have the Jedis in their kind of like Republic ship heading toward what is the blockade of Naboo.
Right.
And the first dialogue is, send a message.
Right.
Trade Federation pops up on screen, and then you get the accent. And so,
yes, you do.
Impressions of Trade Federation. People were really upset about the accent of the Neimoidians, the Trade Federation.
Yeah.
But like for you, just as a viewer, both when you saw the movie, but also now looking back on it. What are your impressions of Trade Federation? What do you think about it?
Clearly, I think the first thing that comes to mind is they need to unionize. It's clear that
Yes.
Had they been unionized, this whole thing probably wouldn't have happened.
Probably would.
Yeah. Beyond that, however, all right. So I mentioned in our last episode how the crawl kind of like made my eyes start to kind of twitch a little bit.
Yeah.
When Newt Gunray opened his mouth for the first time,
There's some problems.
There were some problems, and I remember seeing it, and I tell you, between that and really even the costuming, I really, in my mind's eye, kind of had this flashback to what I would just kind of label as like this classic 1970s, early 1980s sci-fi that had been like overdubbed from Asia. I'm thinking of like Ultraman and things like that.
Yeah,
and it was it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
It is shocking, and there are aliens in Star Wars that speak, basic English.
Right.
But Jabba, Greedo, there are aliens that don't.
Right.
And you wonder in retrospect, should they have just gone with like an alien language for that initial opening shot scene? The accent, you can interpret it as racist and stereotypical kind of stuff, and I hate that for the Phantom Menace. I don't think that was, I doubt that was George Lucas's intention.
Right.
Now it doesn't bother me as much because everybody's mad at something every other day, right?
Sure. Yes.
And so it's like, I kind of reached this point where when I see the Trade Federation, I see the ships, the ship designs, kind of that kind of circle in a circle kind of design.
Right.
I really loved it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think as we dive deeper into the Phantom Menace, like one of the things that really jumps out at me is like the design work on these films, these prequel films is stellar.
Yes.
And I love that initial droid control ship where they go, but it's the accent, and I think why people were really bothered by that, and I think it's okay to kind of feel a little miffed by it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something you like worry about in the long run.
Yeah.
But it can be a problem.
Yeah.
And as we kind of like dig in and move through the story, it diminishes that issue with the Trade Federation.
Right.
You hear them a few times in the other films, but it's very, very, it's seldom. It comes up seldom.
I'd be curious, even so much was going on for so many people that were coming back to Star Wars that never thought we would get Star Wars again. Yeah. I'd be curious if either it were an alien language or if it weren't the first words of dialogue that we heard with the accent, if our view would be different of it. I don't know.
It probably would, and there's edits online where people have gone in and just put in an alien dialect in there for them, and it does change things a little bit.
It does.
It does. Whatever you want to say about the prequels, and people have plenty to say, it is. I think sometimes when we watch these movies, we miss some of the brilliance of it. And
agreed.
I think one of the brilliant things is just early on the design.
Yeah.
I think the ships are really unique. And as we move forward with the introduction of course, our leads. I mean, there's a bunch of protagonists in this film, multi ones. But we see the two Jedi, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan here in a minute.
Yeah.
and we see their situation, but also the design inside the ship, the Trade Federation, battle droids. We're given a lot of new Star Wars, and the design of that new Star Wars is truly unique.
Yeah.
And so, again, we're moving into this new film, the first we had in a long time, back in 1999. And some people obviously were bummed out about it, but I think what you're seeing is some really top-notch design, set design, creature design, ship design.
Right.
And sadly, I think sometimes we forget how good it is, and it might be. I don't want to get crazy.
Yeah.
But the prequels and how they design everything might be the best comparative to the sequel trilogy and the original.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of that design is top-notch.
I think that's one of the things that I'm not a prequel apologist.
Yeah.
I used to be a prequel hater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But I think the prequels stand on their own.
They do.
And I think that you're absolutely right when it comes to appreciating some of the nuances. The architecture is phenomenal. We look at Naboo, we look at Coruscant, and we get to see something that otherwise all we had is this knowledge of desert, swamp, snow.
Yeah.
And in those, we don't really have any architecture per se. I mean, of course, we have dwellings and stuff, but as far as something that is sleek, and we see that carry over to, quite frankly, everything within the Naboo starfighter and ship line of things. I think that looking at that opening shot, I think that the accent took me out of it. I think I have to fight against the accent now.
Yeah.
We can push all of the arguments about, the racism or potential overtones of racism within Phantom Menace. There have been plenty of podcasts and videos that have broken that down.
Yeah.
So we don't need to go there. But I will say that I think that maybe other creative options would have helped me personally buy in a little bit more.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.